The amount of politeness we use in any given situation is a function of three factors. The first is the power relationship between the speaker and the hearer. The second is the social distance or familiarity between the speaker and the hearer. And the third is the overall ranking of the face-threatening act that we're doing. A face-threatening act is any communicative act like a request or a command or a criticism or whatever that might cause someone to lose face, and that's why politeness is needed. So when making a request, like to borrow money to someone who's more powerful than we are, we'd use a lot of politeness. So if we see our boss at the vending machine, we might say, "Oh, would it be too much trouble if I could borrow a quarter I'm a little bit short." But if you're the boss and you see one of your employees at the vending machine, you might be able to say, "Give me a quarter, would you?" You'd be less polite. And the need to use less politeness is one way that your power manifests itself in interpersonal interaction. The same thing is true with social distance or familiarity. So if you see a stranger and you're getting onto the subway and you need another quarter to buy a token, you might say, "Oh, pardon me, I feel so bad, but would you mind lending me a quarter so I can get this subway token?" But if you're with a friend, you just say, "Give me a quarter, I'm a quarter short." So the lower the familiarity or social distance, the less politeness you need. And finally, there's the ranking of the act, which means some acts are just intrinsically more face-threatening than others. They're intrinsically ruder than others. So it's one thing to borrow a quarter, it's another thing to borrow $500. So often, if the ranking of the act is very high, we won't even ask at all. Or if we do ask, we'll use a ton of politeness. We'll say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I hate to even ask. I feel terrible for even asking, but might you be able to maybe please lend me this $500? I'll pay back," etc. And that politeness is an indicator of how face-threatening we know the action is. The interesting thing about this is we can read backwards, we can look at someone, how much politeness they use in a given situation, and we can make inferences about what they thought the power relationship was, what they thought our social distance or familiarity was, and what they thought about the ranking of the act. So when someone comes to us and they start hedging and say, "Well, could you do me a favor? I don't even really want to ask. I'm sorry, I really wouldn't even ask if I didn't have to." We know that the thing they're about to ask is going to be very, very inconvenient for us, or else they wouldn't be so polite. And similarly, we can listen to what people say and how much politeness they use, and it's an indicator of what they believe about the power relationship between us and the social distance between us. So politeness holds a lot of information about the social relationships between people.